Hello everyone. Welcome to Mind Podcast Buddhism, the best channel for sharing knowledge about Buddhism. Today, we will talk about the topic, 108 Teachings of the Dalai Lama. Join us as we explore the profound wisdom and guidance from these teachings, which can help us navigate life's challenges and transform our destinies. 108 Teachings of the Dalai Lama, helping you transform your fate. 1. Whenever you feel confused and lack confidence, think immediately of the wonderful qualities inherent in you. These qualities are just waiting to be nurtured, so cherish the joy of recognizing this precious treasure within you. Joy is a strength, so cultivate it. 2. The key to your happiness is being content with who you are at the present moment. This inner satisfaction will transform your perception of everything around you, and you will undoubtedly find peace within. 3. When someone causes you harm, do not hesitate to forgive them. The reason is that when you think about what drove them to act in such a way, you will realize that it is their own suffering, not a deliberate intent to hurt you. Forgiveness is a positive response based on thoughtful consideration, not just letting things slide. It is a conscious act based on understanding and accepting the reality of the situation. 4. Give to others without expecting anything in return and without any calculation. Giving not for pleasure or to be loved, but out of genuine compassion brings true happiness. Morality is based on a firm determination to help others. The only thing that can bring all sentient beings together is love. 5. Be grateful to your enemies, for they are your greatest teachers. They train you to endure suffering and develop patience, tolerance, and compassion without expecting any reward. 6. The most beautiful adornments you possess are love and compassion. If you seek what can bring you happiness and peace, you will find that they are closely tied to the human qualities you cultivate in your heart and your state of mind. 7. External disarmament is impossible without internal disarmament. Violence begets violence. Only inner peace can lead to a tranquil and non-confrontational life. Global disarmament is one of my deepest dreams, yet it remains just a dream. 8. Mental and emotional suffering is like a guide helping you see whether your attitude is right or wrong. Finding meaning in your life will calm your mind or help you rise above your suffering, which means changing your mental outlook. 9. Rejoice in the happiness of others, for it is an opportunity to create moments of joy for yourself. Be happy when you are happy, because loving others is achieved by not focusing solely on your own affection. Loving others will help you develop stability and confidence. How you perceive the situations in your life will lead to neutral, happy, or painful states you experience. Love and compassion dissolve the fear that arises from the belief that life is imposed upon us without our choice. Once these positive emotions emerge within you, confidence will appear, and fear will vanish. Your mind creates the world you live in. 11. Training the mind helps you live in harmony with yourself and others, no matter the circumstances. Nothing and no one can make a person unhappy if they possess a clear mind free from emotions arising from conflicting sentiments. 12. Happiness cannot be found if we don't look at reality and instead chase illusions. Reality is neither good nor bad. Things are as they are, not necessarily as we want them to be. Understanding and accepting this is one of the keys to happiness. 13. Buddhism teaches that the moments before death are crucial because they prepare us for our existence in the bardo, the intermediate state between death and rebirth that begins after the last breath. To live with a peaceful mind in those final moments, practitioners must prepare throughout their lives, and in those last moments, focus their minds on deep compassion, the bond between teacher and student, or on emptiness and impermanence, to ensure a favorable rebirth. Understanding that death can occur at any time teaches us to live fully in each moment and die in peace. 14. Anger, hatred, and animosity always need an object to manifest, just as fire needs dry wood to ignite. When faced with adversity or provocation, use the strength of patience to avoid falling under the influence of negative emotions. Patience arises from unwavering endurance. If you develop patience, nothing and no one can disturb your mind. 15. Organize your life around valuable things that give meaning to your existence, which means not letting worldly pleasures and external distractions pull you away from your true self. Live a life with a great purpose. the ideal of serving others. 16. If an action is kind, it cannot be judged as small or large, because all acts of kindness contribute to building peace in the world. The only important thing is to give everything to others and find happiness in that. The greatest human quality is selflessness. 17. Do not waste time on envy or arguments. Reflect on impermanence to realize the value of life. To create peace in your mind and heart, you must change mental habits. If you do not want to go mad when you must leave this world, practice now to understand that you should not cling to anything and not dream that these things will accompany you in death. 18. Do not neglect your body, but also do not be overly concerned with it. Respect it and take care of it as a precious and necessary tool to help your mind attain enlightenment. 19. Your actions reflect your thoughts and emotions. By themselves, actions are neither positive nor negative. They are positive or negative depending on the intention that motivates them. It is this intention that creates karma, the experiences generated by the law of cause and effect, making your life appear happy or sorrowful. 20. In giving, the first rule is not to harm others. This way you also avoid harming yourself, because causing harm to others means creating harm for yourself. 21. You cannot hold on to the present. Nothing lasts forever in this world. Nothing exists independently. Why strive to grasp and hold on to sensory objects in the present? They do not contain any inherent substance. They are merely the result of countless causes and conditions. They are not born to last, because they are always changing every moment. Therefore, do not cling to anything. 22. Uncontrolled desire makes the mind a slave and will never allow it to be at peace, because it constantly creates countless situations in daily life, pushing it to pursue objects of desire that it has not yet attained. Controlling and overcoming desire will free you from all situations, whether they are of happiness or suffering, and will bring peace to your heart and mind. 23. Practicing patience is developing compassion toward those who hurt you without letting them destroy you. Compassion is the best healer for the mind, freeing it from attachments and conflicting impulses. 24. It is because of ignorance and a lack of clear understanding that we continuously create misfortune for ourselves. The mind is always torn between what it likes and what it dislikes. We act without regard for the situations we face. We forget that nothing exists independently. We also forget that we can die at any time. 25. Attachment to sensory objects makes the mind crave and become unhealthy. Accumulating wealth does not correspondingly bring peace to the mind. Look at those who have plenty of material comforts. They can provide for themselves all their lives, yet they live in worry, sadness, dissatisfaction, and isolation. They do not understand that giving brings the greatest joy. They cannot see that they do not need a lot of wealth to give a smile that brings happiness to others. Their material comforts are abundant, yet they do not bring them any happiness, because the only way to improve one's inner life is through spiritual practice. 26. I vow to use my existence and not waste a single moment to help free sentient beings from suffering and the causes of suffering, and help them find happiness and see the causes that bring happiness. I will always remember that compassion for others must begin with compassion for oneself, but that compassion must be free of any trace of selfishness, because we all belong to the same community of sentient beings. 27. Confidence achieved through analytical meditation will transform the mind. This transformation takes time and is very similar to scientific methods. Analyzing the emotions that disturb and unsettle the mind helps one choose the most effective and appropriate remedies for one's goals, such as freeing oneself from disturbing emotions to achieve enlightenment. Remember that two opposing impulses cannot coexist in the mind. So if you become angry at someone, immediately think of generating love for that person. If love arises in your heart, anger will disappear from your mind. Love is the remedy for anger. 28. Everything is impermanent, and it is precisely because of this that we can transform the mind and the disturbing emotions that unsettle it. For example, the manifestation of emotions like hatred and anger depends on the situations that arise. By themselves, they do not contain any inherent reality, nor do they exist permanently in the mind. This fact allows us to overcome, transform, and eliminate them. To achieve this, we must place them in the contexts in which they arise and analyze how they manifest in situations to understand them. Achieving a state of lasting happiness means eliminating negative emotions from the mind. 29. Suffering is neither irrational nor useless. It is simply the result of karma, the law of cause and effect that governs cycles of existence. It is challenging to understand this without believing in reincarnation. Our thoughts and actions from past lives produce consequences, either positive or negative, depending on the motivating intentions. This principle is always true for any nation or society. What happens to the Tibetan people is a result of karma. However, this does not mean we should not strive to restore human rights in Tibet, nor should the unique beliefs, ancient philosophy, and culture representing our civilization be disrespected. Do not confuse karma with fate. Learn from life's lessons to act positively and responsibly. 30. How can we foster world peace if we do not respect nature? All of us, from humans to animals, are united in the universal desire to avoid suffering and create favorable conditions for a good and peaceful life. It is crucial to always remind ourselves that the wish to be free from suffering is the most fundamental right of all sentient beings. To help everyone respect this right, we must first transform ourselves to set an example for others. Practicing compassion is the core of the Buddhist path. Developing this quality is essential because it helps us act rightly for the happiness of others and understand how to avoid creating the causes of suffering for ourselves and others. This means avoiding negative karma. Compassion is a profound emotion directed toward all who suffer without any discrimination. It arises from the deep desire to help others. A Buddhist practitioner should remind themselves daily with the following wish: may I be able to help all sentient beings eliminate suffering and its causes, and help them see the causes and conditions for enlightenment. 32. We all desire happiness. No one wishes to suffer. Understanding this is crucial for transforming our minds. Once we realize this reality, an immense sense of affection and compassion for others will arise within us. However, this can only happen if we also show love and respect for ourselves. It is delusional to think we can love others while hating ourselves and rejecting our own reality. 33. The principle of interdependence among all beings and phenomena shows that we are always connected to others, nature, and the universe. We all depend on each other, indicating that we must take responsibility for our thoughts, lifestyle, and even the smallest actions because they impact the entire universe. Moreover, since everything is interconnected, we must help all sentient beings eliminate suffering and recognize the sources of happiness. Helping others means addressing the causes of suffering, which directly relate to all of us. This is the correct understanding of the law of interdependence. 34. Whether we receive guidance from a teacher or not, each of us must find a suitable practice that meets our own needs. This principle is essential for transforming our inner self, bringing peace to our minds, and cultivating positive qualities to become better people. Therefore, it is crucial for teachers to tailor their teachings to the spiritual inclinations and mental capacities of each individual, just as the Buddha did in his time. Just as we do not all eat the same food as our neighbors, each person eats according to their body's needs, so it is with spiritual nourishment. 35. Our happiness depends on the happiness of others, so it is vital to do everything possible to help others achieve happiness. Sometimes we may feel powerless to help others, but we must not lose heart and continue to act positively. Doing so enables us to develop genuine altruism within ourselves, bringing peace to our minds. 36. If helping others seems too difficult, then act selfishly but intelligently. This means understanding that doing good for others will create more friendly relationships and better conditions for our own happiness and peace. 37. Methods to cultivate compassion must be developed alongside understanding and wisdom to lead to proper and appropriate actions. Knowledge and wisdom are indispensable in understanding the true nature of all things and the fundamental nature of the mind. Accurately assessing our perceptions and experiences can only be achieved by observing an object or situation from multiple perspectives, providing a clear and appropriate response to overcome negative reactions and emotions. 38. To attain enlightenment, it is crucial to perceive reality correctly. To grasp this reality more easily, Buddhism advocates the concept of two truths: relative truth and absolute truth. Relative truth is what we perceive with our senses. Absolute truth is indescribable because it transcends all concepts. According to the scriptures, these two truths complement each other, cannot be separated, and must always depend on each other, like a bird needing both wings to fly. Reality depends on both truths. 39. Typically, we perceive the nature of things incorrectly. The discrepancy between what is real and what we perceive is the cause of suffering. Transforming the mind to see reality means learning to see it as it is, without interpretation, honestly and in the present moment. This way, we will no longer grasp reality according to the projections of our minds. This is the fundamental condition for achieving peace of mind. 40. Facing the suffering of others can sometimes overwhelm us, and their suffering can increase our own difficulties. These feelings are not experiences of compassion. True compassion will ignite boundless courage within us, rather than anxiety or horror. The desire to do everything possible to alleviate the suffering of others becomes more important than our own suffering. Actions driven by compassion bring boundless joy. 41. All composite things eventually dissolve. They are impermanent, temporary, and transient. Our bodies are the same, yet we often forget this because we cling too much to our bodies. For some, thinking about this truth brings great suffering. Understanding the true nature of all things helps us accept that nothing exists independently and that suffering is also transient and non-existent in itself. This understanding helps us feel lighter when facing difficult and frustrating situations in life or dealing with specific challenges. 42. Some aspirations or desires can be accepted in spiritual practice. For instance, a practitioner's desire to control their mind or a theist's wish to please God are legitimate. However, desires directed toward external objects only create attachment and negative emotions in the mind, which are not legitimate. It is crucial to limit such desires and attachments. It is an illusion to believe that the external world will one day satisfy our desires. 43. Tibetans greatly emphasize the prenatal period. From conception to the end of pregnancy, the mother must keep her mind calm and feel happy and peaceful, which helps the fetus develop harmoniously. In the Western world, this attitude is becoming more common, and many are beginning to understand that a worried, angry, greedy, or envious mother negatively impacts the fetus. We should encourage mothers to breastfeed if possible, as breast milk reflects a love for humanity. Medical discoveries show that affectionate gestures toward an infant play a significant role in its brain development. 44. Improving the mind can sometimes seem challenging for modern Westerners in today's societal context. However, it all depends on our determination, which brings boundless enthusiasm for practice regardless of circumstances. Therefore, if we are sincere, we can practice to transform our minds while continuing our work, family life, and daily activities. 45. Transforming the mind, developing qualities of love and compassion, and improving ourselves depend on our determination. To strengthen and stimulate this determination, we need to turn inward, carefully observe ourselves, and foster a desire to improve and learn. Through intelligence, we must strive to maintain a positive direction, and wisdom will grow accordingly. This approach, at least initially, must rely on intelligence and reason. 46. Everyday work takes up a lot of time, but that doesn't mean people can't find moments to relax, such as taking walks, weekend trips, or vacations. If you truly desire to transform yourself, you can always find the time to do so. The key is to have a deep-seated desire for change. 47. At the beginning of the spiritual path, everything seems difficult. However, this is where we gain experience, and gradually our desire and determination to follow the path becomes stronger and more resolute, allowing us to transform our minds in any situation, whether at work, in family life, or during daily chores. As a result, we become more mindful and attentive. Practicing Dharma means continually refining oneself by wisely using our time. If you feel envious of a more successful colleague or jealous when someone possesses something valuable, immediately work to transform your mind with antidotes to eliminate these negative emotions. The best way to deal with such situations is to cultivate joy and happiness in the success and good fortune of others. 49. There are no limits to our desire for understanding our minds and developing our human qualities. We can infinitely expand this aspiration, meaning we will never be fully satisfied with what we have achieved. However, why can't we fully develop qualities like compassion, love, and tolerance? It is because the desire to develop these inner qualities is profoundly deep, vast, and boundless. 50. We must be vigilant about the nature of our motivations. If they are kind, this will be reflected in our actions, speech, and thoughts. Changing mental habits is essential for improving the mind and actions arising from it. For example, we should avoid harming others, be mindful not to be driven by arrogance and jealousy, and not always think in terms of gain and loss. When negative emotions no longer occupy us, our behavior will change, becoming more altruistic, and our activities within the community will benefit others. 51. Everyone has a unique nature and tendencies, so it is difficult to say that something is universally beneficial for everyone. However, I think it is possible to advise everyone to cultivate an enlightened spirit, which includes love for others and the determination to improve oneself, to help others, and contemplate impermanence from all different perspectives. 52. We give too much importance to the past and future. We live and see the past and future as if they are present, forgetting that we live in the present moment. The most essential thing is to live in each present moment, as these are the only times when we can truly transform our minds by cultivating positive emotions to care for others. 53. Meditation is a way of thinking that helps us grasp the present more easily and live it peacefully without being haunted by past or future likes and dislikes. Whenever faced with a problem, it is essential to assess its true importance. If there is a solution, implement it immediately. If there is no solution, worrying is useless and will only increase your distress. So why worry? 54. Negative thoughts and emotions obscure our true nature or radiant essence. They are numerous, and if we cannot overcome them, they will drag us into any situation they wish. Whether one is a Buddhist or not, everyone can think and ask themselves, is there an I thinking that this is me? Is there something called I or self existing somewhere? Through practice or contemplation, we can distinguish between a person experiencing an emotion, such as jealousy, anger, or hatred, and the emotion itself. As we get used to this analysis, we can more easily identify what is happening inside us, helping us separate the mind from what is agitating it, thus allowing us to control it. 55. Whenever you feel uncontrollably stressed and anxious, look at the self and observe how it dominates you. Understanding its true nature through introspection will help alleviate these anxieties. 56. Understanding the interdependence between people and phenomena helps cultivate nonviolence globally and individually. Interdependence is one of the most fundamental principles of Buddhist teachings. All things and beings exist only through interdependence with each other and the world. Nothing exists independently. Everything depends on an endless chain of causes and conditions, which themselves are interdependent. 57. Phenomena continuously change because the law of interdependence and interaction governs all beings and events. We are constantly changing because causes and conditions must interact and relate. However, people tend to blame a single event as the sole cause of good or bad outcomes, putting all efforts into acquiring or eliminating it depending on its perceived benefit or harm. This attitude shows a lack of understanding of the principle of interdependence and interaction among all beings and phenomena. 58. No single cause or person can be the source of our happiness or suffering. To understand this, we need a broad and comprehensive view of all things and to expand our perception of reality. This helps us realize that our experiences result from countless causes and conditions governed by interdependence. Thus, blaming someone or something as the sole cause of our suffering is irrational. We must take responsibility for our lives, whether good or bad. This is the law of karma, the law of cause and effect that applies to everyone impartially. Understanding and accepting this brings peace to the mind. 59. A narrow-minded person is considered less wise, while a broad-minded person is called a sage. Understanding interdependence, combined with wisdom and knowledge, broadens our minds and helps us pause to observe our experiences. 60. Thinking about interdependence and understanding it means seeing the true nature of all things and the functioning of reality. This transforms our perception of the world and changes our habits and behaviors. Therefore, when facing suffering, do not despair and think it is unfair. Instead, consider that many others experience similar difficulties and develop a broader perspective on all things. Rather than focusing on your own suffering, sacrifice yourself to help those who endure similar pains. This approach initially seems challenging because it requires reducing selfishness, but gradually it will bring true peace to your mind. 61. Wisdom helps us envision the operation of interdependence, while understanding enables us to grasp the true nature of all things. Always remember these to cultivate compassion and love for others. It is clear that expressing love and compassion for others benefits both them and ourselves. Conversely, harming others harms us. In the first case, both parties benefit, and in the second, both lose. 62. Understanding interdependence is crucial for addressing terrorism and fanaticism. People think eliminating these issues will solve difficulties. Of course, we cannot ignore the seriousness of extremist actions, as that would be a mistake. However, we must also understand that these behaviors stem from many causes and conditions. Many reasons contribute to such attitudes. Some people, overly attached to their religious traditions, have narrow views, isolating themselves from reality and creating their behavior. A broader and more enlightened view of all things, both short-term and long-term, will give them more confidence and resilience, helping them choose a different way of acting. 63. It is crucial to establish personal discipline to transform our inner selves. This discipline should not reflect external imposition for any reason, but must arise from understanding and awareness of the benefits of maintaining it. 64. If we want to improve our professional skills or gain more knowledge about a subject, we must dedicate time to study and practice. We must prioritize what is most important and practical for us and strive to achieve our chosen goals and aspirations. The same applies to spiritual life. Choose suitable personal disciplines. 65. We are all human beings with similar desires. I am no different from you. Whenever I encounter difficulties, I also look inward, analyze what is happening to gain some clarity. This positive reaction is something each of us can do. We live in countries with abundant material conditions, technology, and amenities, but we cannot solely rely on external circumstances to find happiness. Peace, serenity, and tranquility can only flourish within our minds. Therefore, creating the necessary conditions for this development must also come from within. 66. We must strive to create lasting happiness for ourselves. Temporarily hiding our worries isn't too difficult, like enjoying a cool beer to feel good. However, this pleasure is fleeting, as worries will return. To achieve lasting happiness, we must improve the functioning of our minds. This is the advice I always give my friends. 67. It is not necessary to follow a religion to transform your mind. Whether you believe in religion or not, anyone can change their mind. While spiritual traditions offer means to achieve this goal, they are not the only path one must follow. For this definitive reason, I often promote a millennia-old moral foundation applicable to all people regardless of faith. 68. All specific religious or cultural doctrines become outdated, allowing humanity to come together on a non-religious ethical foundation based on more universally human principles. This is a true revolution, rooted in human qualities like compassion, love, tolerance, respect, and a sense of responsibility. 69. Respecting the happiness of all sentient beings is fundamental in Buddhist ethics, meaning we should do nothing wrong or harmful to any sentient being. This forms the foundation of nonviolence, compassion, and love for others. If the ultimate goal is to create as much happiness for others as possible and bring them great benefits, it is crucial to make every effort, moment by moment, to achieve that goal. The moral precepts, Shila, are one of the elements that help us achieve enlightenment, alongside meditation, samadhi, and wisdom, prajna. These elements complement each other. Living without moral precepts will lead to behavior that harms others, causing pain for others and sowing the seeds of suffering for oneself. We must be clearly aware of this to develop an ethical foundation based on understanding and wisdom. The highest ethical quality is placing others' happiness above our own. 71. Troubling emotions cloud the mind, preventing us from considering the consequences of our actions and leading us to act negatively towards others. Transforming the mind means eliminating the destructive mental factors hidden within us. To achieve this, we must meditate, recognize the benefits of maintaining ethical discipline, and abandon selfish concerns. We should care for others, directing our attention and thoughts positively towards them. This gradually helps us achieve the ultimate goal of ethical discipline, bringing goodness to all sentient beings. This can only be realized by maintaining precepts, fostering honest, right, and truthful conduct. 72. Understanding that we harbor an infinite potential for love within ourselves helps us develop affection, love, and compassion for others. We can all naturally feel love for others, similar to the instinctive bond between a mother and her baby. Without this natural maternal love, we wouldn't survive. This innate ability allows us to recognize and feel affection in our surroundings. 73. We often neglect an essential form of discipline, not behaving immorally towards ourselves. We should neither harm others nor ourselves. We cannot bring goodness to others if we despise ourselves. Recognizing our deep desire for happiness is legitimate. Realizing this and creating conditions for our own happiness allows us to share that happiness with everyone. Therefore, when reciting the Bodhisattva's vow to help all beings achieve enlightenment, we must first vow to realize it for ourselves. 74. Sometimes we may harm others unknowingly. In such cases, the karmic impact differs from that of intentional negative actions. The intention behind our actions is crucial in determining their consequences. 75. The motivation behind actions can significantly influence the karmic results, often more so than the actions themselves. For example, if we intend to harm someone but remain silent without expressing any aggression, it does not mean we are not harboring harmful intentions. In reality, we have an intention to harm, even if our actions outwardly appear harmless. From a Buddhist perspective, in terms of ethics and karma, the motivating intention guiding our thoughts is of utmost importance. 76. Buddha taught, "We are what we think. Our thoughts shape our world." Proper conduct and ethics positively impact the world, showing that things are not merely illusions or mental projections. Our perception of the world is a projection, a mental creation unique to each person. For instance, two people might perceive the same object differently. One sees beauty, the other sees ugliness. Scriptures explain that our perception of the world results from accumulated karmic experiences recorded in our consciousness over countless lifetimes. 77. Always believe in humanity. Deep down, people are good and full of compassion, each with the potential to become a Buddha. However, we must also recognize that aggressive emotions can lurk within individuals, prompting them to act. 78. Knowledge, experience, observation, and medical science all agree that a calm, nonviolent mind leads to a peaceful and harmonious life. Cruelty, hatred, and mental obsessions negatively impact physical health. Conversely, a serene and relaxed attitude positively affects health and well-being. 79. Our happiness and suffering are closely interconnected with those of all sentient beings. Recognizing this connection fosters love, openness, and kindness towards others. These qualities can be cultivated without relying on religious doctrines or traditions. 80. Whenever you feel a craving or mental disturbance, immediately observe the arising negative thoughts and emotions to avoid falling under their control. Being aware of them helps prevent actions leading to negative karma. For example, if someone insults you and you react with anger, it shows you are being controlled by your anger, preventing a more thoughtful and appropriate response. This indicates we are not in control of our actions. 81. Self-discipline should not mean simply telling ourselves, "I must not do this or that because it's forbidden," but understanding the short-term and long-term consequences of our thoughts and actions, realizing that certain actions cause suffering to ourselves and others. This type of self-discipline, based on reasoning and analysis, is more effective than one rooted in fear, such as fear of a policeman. 82. Ethics play an increasingly important role in today's advanced societies. Nowadays, media and public opinion constantly scrutinize the ethical conduct of leaders, politicians, doctors, scientists, judges, and others. If they do not respect ethics, the public and media will sharply criticize and expose them. Such reactions force those in power to act more honestly and less hypocritically. 83. The role of the media is crucial in our democratic societies, providing us with freedom. The media strive to promote human values and respect objectivity. I often compare the role of the media to an elephant's trunk, probing everywhere to expose injustices and social issues. However, besides exposing, they should first highlight the positive aspects of the world. Typically, when a disaster occurs and becomes news, it receives excessive attention. Disasters and tragedies dominate the media, while positive actions, altruism, and immensely beneficial projects happening daily around the world receive little attention. This is unfortunate because such positive actions could serve as examples for many others. Focusing only on the negative aspects of human nature can eventually lead to a loss of belief in humanity's goodness. 84. The five senses contribute to human emotions. Therefore, music, painting, and sacred art can influence our emotional states, helping us transform negative emotions into more positive ones. Music, in particular, has the power to open us up to profound levels of our being. 85. Generally, it is crucial to avoid harming others through any form of violence. However, in some specific cases, a minor harm can prevent a greater harm. Thus, we should not always mechanically apply general rules but carefully assess each situation. Ultimately, we must weigh happiness and suffering to minimize harm. 86. Everything depends on the motivation behind it, even in science. For example, using genetic discoveries to treat diseases is commendable. However, using advances in this field to harm others is an act of violence. 87. When discussing spiritual matters, I do not necessarily have to talk about religious issues. One should not rely solely on external factors for happiness and joy, but should focus on how to transform their own mind. To me, true spirituality is about thinking and acting with altruism. A spiritual revolution does not come from external conditions or advancements like computers or brain treatments, but from within, from the deep desire to improve oneself and become a better person. This is something we must practice, as it is the only way to bring about a true spiritual revolution. 88. Negative emotions arise within the mind, impacting and controlling it, thus enslaving us to our own creations. Most of these emotions appear and disappear suddenly, just as they arise. This does not mean we should underestimate their power, as they can be devastating to ourselves and others. While Buddhism offers methods to prevent and transform these emotions from the moment they appear, it is better to be mindful of what is happening inside us. Such mindfulness is effective only when we understand our motivations. This is the difference between a self-chosen practice that helps us progress in the way we desire and an imposed practice that eventually leads to dissatisfaction and resistance. Mastering our mind means understanding the reasons behind our practice, thereby increasing our confidence and determination. 89. Ending karma. The effects of the law of cause and effect governing cycles of existence means eliminating the fundamental ignorance that controls our lives. Ignorance gives rise to all emotions, especially craving, hatred, jealousy, and all other negative emotions. These emotions will continue to dominate our mind and enslave it until we achieve enlightenment and eliminate all suffering. This is something we need to consider to find ways to escape the emotions created by ignorance. 90. True practice is not in places of worship, but outside them. In the world where we face real-life situations and interact with people who can evoke all kinds of emotions, including hatred, love, and desire. Practicing any religion involves more than just praying. It is about developing positive emotions such as compassion, kindness, generosity, a sense of responsibility, and giving without expecting anything in return, treating everyone equally without distinction between friend and foe. 91. To overcome negative emotions, we must use our intelligence to develop understanding and strengthen positive emotions such as compassion, trust, love, and kindness. Cultivating wisdom and understanding alongside positive emotions is the only way to not only overcome, but also eliminate negative emotion. 92. Mental suffering can be more intense than physical pain. A person who is ill, living in poverty, or facing difficulties can still feel happy if they maintain a calm and peaceful mind. At worst, the situation may not cause them distress, or it may only minimally affect them. Conversely, someone living in a harmonious environment but with a mind constantly agitated by conflicting emotions cannot find happiness. The most important thing is to create peace within our mind to live a happy life. 93. Hatred, attachment, and jealousy unbalance the mind and disrupt its tranquility in interactions with others. Maintaining a calm attitude does not mean being indifferent or disconnected from the sufferings of all beings. It means treating everyone equally without favoritism or hatred, always with compassion and love, and helping all beings achieve enlightenment with all our strength without discrimination. 94. We often expect those we help to show gratitude in some way. If they do not, anger or resentment may arise in our minds, or we might even think of harming them. By training our mind and observing what happens within it, we can stop this process and eliminate the disturbing emotions that drive us to violence. Alternatively, a relatively easier method is to see the person we are dealing with as a teacher, helping us develop patience and compassion. Think of this method whenever facing similar situations. After mastering the initial step, you will find it easier over time and it will bring peace to your mind. 95. There are many ways to cultivate patience. Understanding the law of karma is one of them. When facing difficulties at work or dealing with a problem, think that you are responsible for the suffering you endure because you created the causes of that suffering. Although this does not solve the problem, it can help you view the situation with less tension, pause to observe more carefully, and understand that you must avoid creating new karma through unwholesome thoughts. 96. Confidence in oneself and one's qualities is not arrogance. It is crucial to have self-confidence, believe in one's talents and unique qualities, and use this foundation to create goodness, friendliness, compassion, and kindness. Faith and trust are essential for developing human qualities. They are fertile ground for nurturing positive emotions. 97. Adults, whether or not they are parents, have a duty to love children deeply. Education is not just about intellectual development, but also nurturing the sensitivity of the mind and heart, as well as human qualities such as compassion, kindness, and responsibility. Moreover, educating children should include teaching them that we are all interconnected in this world, helping them understand the consequences of their thoughts and actions. Finally, it is crucial for adults to set an example for the children they guide and educate, as leading by example is the best way to teach the values they wish to impart. 98. It is an illusion to think we can change others without first changing ourselves. Achieving peace in the world starts by reducing conflicts between nations to end wars. To reduce social injustice and create a better world, we must first change ourselves, impacting our immediate surroundings, including family and friends. Once we create an atmosphere of compassion, kindness, and joy within that small circle, we can expand its influence to friends, neighbors, and beyond in a snowball effect. Transforming our mind helps us care more for others through the power of altruism, influencing the entire world and contributing to peace among people and nations. 99. In daily life, the more balanced, peaceful, and content our mind is, the more happiness we will experience. An untrained, unruly, and negative mind brings much suffering, both mentally and physically. Therefore, it is clear that a disciplined and content mind is the source of happiness. When we discover and develop this disciplined and serene state of mind to a certain extent, it is called the truth of the path leading to cessation. Illusions are eliminated from the mind, as initial misconceptions made us grasp things and events as real. 100. Buddhist teachings tell us that in the continuous flow of our lives, all beings have at some point been our parents. Believing this immediately reduces conflicts between people and offers a different perspective on those we consider enemies. Negative feelings are consequences of past karma that distort our view of someone we see as an enemy. The enemy is an external manifestation resulting from factors we helped create, which altered our perception. It is crucial to understand this to avoid generating negative emotions towards others or external factors, as these are not responsible for what happens to us. 101. Living harmoniously with the world to benefit others is essential. To do this, we must align with reality and the times we live in. As a practitioner, I am obliged to make my faith accessible to everyone and applicable in today's modern world. 102. In democratic countries where human rights are respected, animal rights are often grossly violated. According to the principle of interdependence among all beings and phenomena, we are all connected. We often forget and do not consider how negative actions impact our lives, both short-term and long-term. Overexploiting animals and nature will have severe future consequences, especially on food and health. It is essential to organize social systems to protect the environment and animals. 103. Most religious principles arise from observing human attitudes and emotions. These principles aim to enhance human qualities like compassion, kindness, and mutual support. Buddhist teachings and practices help Buddhists achieve nirvana, liberation from all suffering. The desire to achieve this ultimate goal does not mean neglecting one's living conditions. Creating favorable living conditions also helps us assist other beings more effectively. For example, without money, it is hard to live, but money should be placed in its proper position and not regarded as an almighty deity. It is a mistake to believe money can satisfy our fundamental needs. The priority is to attain a healthy mind, functioning positively to bring peace to our hearts. Everything else is secondary. 104. The only true power we can possess is to serve others. To me, that is genuine power. All other forms of power, especially those based on money, require caution and awareness, but unfortunately, those who hold such power often forget this. They must be more mindful and careful in understanding their motivations. Politicians are the same. Democracy is built on the principle of separation of powers. The executive, legislative, and judicial branches must be independent. This separation is a safeguard against those who are madly in love with power. 105. On a human level, I make no distinction between a national leader and an ordinary citizen. We are all brothers and sisters with the same basic needs. Spiritual development is essential for everyone. However, I believe it is more beneficial for those with significant responsibilities than for those tentatively following a path and living outside secular life. Government leaders, politicians, and business owners are vital figures in society. Their positive or negative actions impact the lives of many people. To create positive actions and just motivations, they must develop spiritually to avoid harming others on a large scale. It is urgent for leaders to develop compassion and a sense of responsibility. The world needs these qualities to build peace. Number 106. A few decades ago, no one cared about environmental issues. Leaders in the public wrongly believed that the Earth's resources were inexhaustible. Today, most political parties discuss the environment. This shift has occurred due to practical experience. Although current governments are not fully active in conserving natural resources and preventing greenhouse effects and deforestation, they will gradually follow the outlined path. This hope gives me great courage to work towards a better future. 107. Enlightened beings are role models for practitioners to follow. They encourage us to strive harder to become like them, helping us develop wisdom and compassion like theirs. Intelligence can achieve this goal only when it is no longer controlled by negative and harmful emotions, the sources of suffering. Therefore, intelligence driven by a good motivation is an invaluable support. Maternal love binds a mother to her child, not stemming from passionate attachment. A mother never expects anything from the baby in her arms. She feels a duty to it, always wishing to create joy and safety for her child in any situation. Such love, if untainted, closely resembles true compassion. Deep compassion harbors no attachment. Therefore, true compassion should be shown indiscriminately between friends and enemies. When we reach that level of practice, we will no longer distinguish between sentient beings, wishing all to be happy. We care for everyone unconditionally and without distinction, even for someone trying to harm us. This does not unsettle us because we have found peace within our minds. However, this does not prevent us from being cautious and taking necessary preventive measures, but we must not harbor hatred, anger, or resentment. Thank you for listening. If you found this video helpful, please share it with those who might benefit from it. Don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button, follow, and turn on the notification bell. This is how you can show your support for me. Once again, thank you very much, and see you in the next videos. Hello everyone. Welcome to Mind Podcast Buddhism, the best channel for sharing knowledge about Buddhism. Today we will talk about the topic, right action. Right action is a fundamental aspect of Buddhist practice, emphasizing the importance of ethical conduct and moral behavior. By understanding and following the 5 precepts, not killing, not stealing, not lying, not engaging in sexual misconduct, and not using intoxicants, we can cultivate compassion, respect, and mindfulness in our daily lives. Through this practice, we develop a deeper connection to our spiritual path and foster a harmonious relationship with the world around us. The precepts taught by the Buddha for a peaceful life. Some people need a list of precepts to ensure they act ethically and truthfully. Others require precepts to feel confident that they have achieved their spiritual goals, either in heaven or enlightenment. The Buddha also pointed out ways of behavior to avoid suffering, but genuine ethical action is not confined to any set of rules. Instead, these are guidelines related to our actions, showing us how they cause suffering to ourselves and others, how each person's choice of ethical actions impacts everyone. The 5 precepts. Buddhist precepts begin with 5 rules that need to be carefully observed for spiritual progress. 1. Do not kill. 2. Do not steal. 3. Do not lie. 4. Do not commit sexual misconduct. 5. Do not use intoxicants. Followers of the Buddha take a vow to observe these precepts, known as the 5 precepts. However, these moral principles were not invented by the Buddha. They are fundamental ethics present everywhere and timeless. 4 of the 5 precepts are mentioned in the Noble Eightfold Path. Right speech includes not lying. Right action is seen as refraining from killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. The last precept, not using intoxicants, is also part of right action because an intoxicated person cannot avoid wrongful speech or actions. In the early stages of moral development, we need these precepts just as a child needs parental reminders like, don't touch the hot stove. As the child grows and understands the reasons behind the warnings, they recognize that the advice is to keep them safe. Similarly, when we have a complete understanding of ethical actions, right conduct becomes automatic. We no longer have the desire to break the precepts and do not need to rely on them to stay on the right path. Ethics in action. Traditionally, right action includes refraining from killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. Although the terms are similar in the 5 precepts and in defining right action in the Noble Eightfold Path, their meanings slightly differ. In the 5 precepts, the meanings are simple and clear. Just do not do these 3 things. Killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct are the worst actions one can commit, and if one breaks these precepts, peace cannot be attained. Thus, we make a strong, firm vow to observe them strictly. However, when the Buddha spoke of right action in the Noble Eightfold Path, in the sense of avoiding killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct, he gave the simplest examples of how one could violate these precepts. Therefore, this restraint must be understood not just narrowly as keeping precepts, but also as broader guidelines for higher ethical actions. For example, in one sermon, the Buddha encouraged everyone to act with compassion towards all beings with the following teaching: all fear violence. Life is dear to all. Putting oneself in the place of another, one should not kill nor cause another to kill. Daiksa 129. The Buddha explained that any action that causes harm to others, such as vandalizing houses, starting fires, or threatening with weapons, is wrong, even if no one is killed. I once heard about a young man who disliked his roommates and retaliated by secretly destroying their personal belongings, such as throwing their clothes in the toilet or damaging their computers. Such petty vindictiveness and pranks that harm others are also unethical actions. There are also more subtle ethical actions. For instance, the precept of not killing reaches its highest meaning when we develop an attitude of complete harmlessness and always wish well for all living beings. We practice right action not just to avoid breaking the precepts or out of fear of punishment. We avoid cruel, malicious actions because we see the consequences of such actions. They bring unimaginable suffering to ourselves and those around us, in the present and future. We practice right action to make our lives useful and harmonious, not destructive or opposing, and to keep our minds pure, peaceful, and free from the distress of remorse and guilt. When discussing the observance of precepts, the mind plays many tricks. Some people tell themselves that precepts are not for the young. They say, right now, I have the right to enjoy myself and do whatever I want. When I get older, I will reform. Unfortunately, keeping precepts only at the end of life is like winning the lottery just before you die. If you wait too long, you will not benefit from the peace that a moral life can bring. Free from addiction, healthy relationships, a clear conscience, and a tranquil mind. It is best to enjoy the good results of a moral life while you are young, healthy, and strong. In old age, you do not need moral precepts to prevent you from wrongdoing. Another excuse we often use is to tell ourselves, what good are these moral rules to me? My life is good as it is. If that is your attitude, it is best to re-examine your thinking carefully. If your life is good, why do you need to lie, steal, drink, or kill? Breaking precepts quickly becomes a hard-to-break habit. Moreover, these actions inevitably lead to negative consequences. There is no escaping the law of cause and effect. Breaking moral principles can result in the loss of wealth, health, and the love of those close to you. You will also face anxiety, guilt, and even greater suffering. Remember, we keep moral principles to be happy, not to suffer. Even seemingly small, insignificant, unethical actions can have harmful effects. I once heard of a man who lost the chance to win a multi-million-dollar contract simply because he killed a bug. He was a very skilled and knowledgeable businessman. He had an appointment to meet a potential partner to discuss the deal. While they were talking, a bug landed on the rim of the businessman's glass. He used his spoon to push the bug to the bottom of the glass. When the bug crawled back up, he pushed it down again. Throughout the million-dollar conversation, he continued playing with the bug, pushing it down until it drowned at the bottom of the glass. His potential partner later told me that when he saw this behavior, he thought, "This man is too cruel. He might do anything wicked to get money. I don't want to do business with such a person." So, he withdrew from the partnership. You might wonder why the rules in right action are phrased negatively. Do not kill, do not steal, and so on. The reason is simple. We cannot find joy in positive actions until we give up the wrong ones. We tend to act with a mind full of desire, leading to various types of suffering. First, we must resist this natural tendency. Then we can see how pleasant, calm, peaceful, and happy it feels to act ethically. You cannot cook a delicious meal in a dirty pot, or create a beautiful garden on a plot full of weeds. Refraining from unwholesome actions creates the right environment for wholesome actions to flourish. For example, avoiding killing or harboring anger creates the right conditions for love and compassion to develop in our interactions with others. Similarly, avoiding stealing, taking anything not given, whether material goods, labor, thoughts, or innovations of others, leads to the growth of generosity. Ethical actions shift our attention from self-centered, selfish interests to benefits for others and ourselves. When immersed in our desires, we are dominated by greed, hatred, delusion, and other selfish mental states. Thus, we cannot restrain ourselves or have the wisdom to act rightly. But when we refrain from unwholesome actions, the mental fog lifts a little, and we start to see that love, compassion, and generosity truly bring us happiness. This clear-mindedness helps us act ethically and progress on the path following the Buddha's footsteps. Not killing, the tendency to harm or cause pain to other beings often stems from anger or fear. When we intentionally kill a living being, even something as small as an insect, we diminish our respect for all life, including ourselves. Mindfulness helps us recognize our wrongful actions and take responsibility for them. Observing our mental states, we see that anger and fear keep us in a cycle of violence and callousness, leading us to harmful actions and destroying our inner peace. Refraining from killing brings peace to our minds and frees us from anger. This insight helps us to restrain ourselves from wrongful actions and embrace actions stemming from compassion and generosity. A student of mine mentioned feeling fearful and reactive towards certain small creatures like mice, lice, or leeches. Due to these feelings, she was willing to kill them. As mindfulness practice made her more gentle, She vowed not to kill these creatures anymore. As a result, her feelings of fear and aversion towards them also diminished. Recently, she even found the courage to catch a cockroach in her hand and release it outside instead of killing it. When we refrain from killing, respect for life grows, and we begin to act with compassion towards all beings. This same student once visited a friend living at a meditation center. Upon arrival, she noticed traps set to catch buds in front of the staff houses. Dozens of yellow jackets had fallen into the traps, lured by the sweet smell of apple juice. Once they entered through the small hole, they could not escape. Eventually, exhausted from trying to fly in the confined space, they fell into the juice and drowned. She asked her friend about the traps. He agreed that such devices should not be in a meditation center, but said that they had been there for a long time, and he could not do anything about it. Although she tried to ignore the sound of the buds buzzing in the traps, she could not get the image of their suffering out of her mind. She felt compelled to do something to give a few of them a chance to escape. She took a knife, made a small hole at the top of the trap, and stuck the knife in. A few yellow jackets crawled up the knife handle and flew out. Then she made the hole bigger, and more insects escaped. Finally, she realized she could not bear even one more insect dying in the traps. Despite her concerns about her actions, she eventually took all the traps to a nearby garden, opened them, and freed all the remaining insects. As she did so, she silently wished, "May I be freed from unwholesome minds and actions, just as these creatures are freed from these traps." Since then, she has no longer feared yellow jackets. Last spring, a yellow jacket nest appeared under the entrance to the Bhavana Society. Many people were stung and the area was fenced off. However, this student continued to use the entrance without harming any creatures. "I would be very surprised if another yellow jacket stung me," she said. "But if it does, I will still feel sorry for the insect, knowing it acted out of fear or injury." As you can see from this student's experience, refraining from killing creates a conducive environment for compassionate actions to grow in our lives. This is wonderful and an effective way to progress on the path of practice. However, we should not be too rigid in advocating non-killing. Mindfulness requires us to decide our ethical actions and not insist that everyone else follows our example. For example, consider the issue of eating meat. Although I do not eat meat, I do not impose this on everyone. From a broader perspective, even vegetarians indirectly contribute to killing. For example, in a village of about 1,000 vegetarians, the neighboring village has farmers growing vegetables, fruits, and grains to feed the 1,000 villagers. When they till the soil or protect crops from pests, they inevitably kill many small creatures. Then more insects and creatures are killed by the machinery during harvest. The vegetarians in the neighboring village feel comfortable. Although many creatures have been killed, they do not feel guilty because they did not intentionally want to kill. You can see from this example that eating vegetables and killing insects during vegetable cultivation are two separate issues. Similarly, the same reasoning applies to eating meat. Eating meat and killing animals for meat are two entirely different things. Even the Buddha sometimes ate meat when offered. Those who eat only meat do not necessarily wish to kill. Because of the purpose of observing the precept of not killing, the Buddha clearly defined killing as the deliberate act of taking a life. In the precepts for monks and nuns, the Buddha outlined the specific conditions that constitute an act of killing. There must be a living being. We must be aware that there is a living being. We must have the intention to kill. We must plan the method of killing. We must carry out the act of killing using the planned method. Meat eaters do not fall into any of these conditions. They know what they eat is meat and that it comes from animals. However, they do not have the intention to kill the animal, nor do they participate in the act of killing it. If meat is not available, we should not seek, hunt, or slaughter animals for food, but should eat something else. However, we should not overly stress avoiding everything that indirectly contributes to killing. In modern life, many things can indirectly contribute to killing. For example, when driving or walking through a grassy area, we may inadvertently kill insects. Some medications we use have been tested on animals. Through killing them, harming them, or making them ill. Using these medications is not considered an act of killing. The Buddha clearly taught that it is the intention, the deliberate choice, that matters. Regarding spiritual development, there is no difference between a vegetarian and a meat eater. When a vegetarian harbors greed or suspicion, they act just like a meat eater. If you wish to become a vegetarian, by all means do so. Vegetarian meals are very beneficial for health. Personally, I am a vegetarian out of compassion for animals. However, do not feel obligated to avoid eating meat to attain the greatest happiness. Many lay practitioners ask me what to do about insects in their homes or gardens. They want to be good Buddhists and avoid killing, but their flowers will wither or their homes become dirty because they dare not touch the insects. I tell them that killing insects, even for a good purpose, is still killing. However, not all killing has the same karmic consequences. Typically, killing an insect does not hinder our spiritual progress as much as killing an animal, like a dog. Similarly, killing a dog will not disturb the mind as much as killing a human. No act of killing brings more calamity upon oneself than killing one's parents or an enlightened being. Such killing obstructs the murderer from attaining enlightenment in this life and leads to the worst possible rebirths. Compared to this, killing insects is not a significant issue. Understanding that there are many kinds of karma, we choose our actions and accept their consequences. Not stealing. Stealing is an expression of greed or envy. Taking what does not belong to us is a bad habit that is hard to break. Some people have so little restraint in this area that even when they attend a meditation retreat to find happiness and peace, they continue the habit of stealing. At Bhavana Society, we have encountered instances where people steal meditation cushions. I do not know of anyone who has attained enlightenment while meditating on a stolen cushion. Our library has faced similar problems. As Bhavana Society is in a forest and far from major bookstores, we maintain a collection of sacred texts. Over time, some books have disappeared. It is amusing that people come here to meditate and learn about the Buddha's teachings, but fail to realize that taking what is not theirs cannot bring peace of mind. Practicing right action and not stealing means striving to live honestly and respecting others' property. This means telling a cashier if they forgot to charge you for an item or gave you too much change. It means returning what is not yours without expecting any reward for your honesty. Of course, sometimes honesty leads to material rewards. I recall a news story about two children who found a bag of money in a Sears bathroom. They took the bag home and discovered it contained over $36,000. With their parents' support, the children decided to turn the money over to the police. It was discovered that the money belonged to a customer who had stopped by Sears on their way to the bank and left the bag in the bathroom. Imagine the customer's relief and joy at having their money returned. This incident surely sparked faith in human goodness and honesty in their heart. The grateful customer rewarded the children appropriately, and the community praised their integrity. Taking someone's property or money is obviously stealing. However, we often witness subtler forms of theft. For example, claiming someone else's ideas as our own is stealing. Taking small items from work like pens, paper, or discs for personal use is also stealing. We often justify such actions by thinking, I could have thought of that, or the company owes me these things because they pay me so little. Cheating on taxes, writing bad checks, bribery, or engaging in deceitful business practices are also forms of theft. Even eating food in a supermarket when you're hungry is considered stealing. Remember, never satisfy the body at the cost of the mind. Our purpose in observing ethical precepts and right action is to lead a happy life. If we break precepts, suffering will surely follow, in this life or the next. To be happy, the mind must be peaceful, and the conscience must be clear. Do not think that refraining from stealing is to please the world. You do it for your own serenity, now and in the future. Once we transcend the gross level of struggling against any form of theft, we can reconsider our concern for others' needs and become less attached to material possessions. Using the precept of not stealing as a guide, we become less envious of others' possessions or good fortune. Instead, we discover the joy of empathy and take delight in others' happiness. Abstaining from sexual misconduct. This precept of the Buddha is often interpreted as refraining from engaging in improper sexual conduct, but it actually applies to much more than just sexual activities. The Buddha really intended to advise us to refrain from indulging the senses indiscriminately. All the senses. Sexual misconduct is a particularly harmful form of such indulgence. Due to this precept, people often think that when the Buddha speaks of indulging the senses, he only refers to refraining from improper sexual acts. These acts include rape, forcing someone to engage in sexual activities without their consent. Additionally, this precept also refers to sexual abuse of children, animals, someone else's spouse or partner, or someone who cannot protect themselves. If a partner, even without marriage, lives together and one betrays the other, it is also considered sexual misconduct. Sexual relations with an adult partner, appropriate and consensual, are not considered misconduct. Beyond the mentioned issues, people often face many problems due to sexual desire. Ironically, sexual desire can never be completely satisfied. Even after enduring numerous trials, sufferings, and efforts to satisfy their desires, the longing for sexual pleasure never fades. Some people turn to meditation due to the torment brought by their sexual desires. Unfortunately, often while they strive to attain concentration and mental peace, sexual desire continues to trouble them. The only solution to this problem is to begin by controlling your sexual activities. If you cannot control them at all, the path to happiness will remain forever distant. Some diligent meditators have made significant progress in abandoning vices like drinking or lying, yet they do not realize why they need to control their sexual activities. They say, "I don't see anything wrong with just wanting to have a little fun." According to traditional classifications, it seems there is still a lack of understanding about what should be avoided in sexual activity. Many argue that the precept does not prohibit relations with multiple partners as long as they are single and suitable, nor does it oppose seeking trivial pleasures. But trivial pleasures degrade your dignity, diminish your humanity. Promiscuous sexual relations harm you and others. So what is the purpose of this kind of fun? To bring you pleasure? To satisfy your desires? However, we have previously stated that desire craving is the root of suffering. The Buddha's second noble truth teaches that all suffering arises from craving. Indulgence in sexual activity is one of the easiest ways for our minds to fall into the cycle of craving and aversion. Sexual pleasure is fleeting, but the price we pay, humiliation, anxiety, jealousy, regret, fear, loneliness, and the endless desire for more pleasure, is immeasurable, making us chase after it incessantly. The problem is that craving cannot be satisfied through material means. Doing so is like scratching an itch with fingers coated in itch-inducing ointment. Although scratching may provide temporary relief, it spreads the toxin further, making the itch worse. The cure for this ailment requires self-restraint, not doing things that only increase your future suffering. The Buddha used a powerful metaphor to describe the offenses people often commit regarding sexual matters. In the Buddha's time, lepers often sat around a fire, burning their wounds. Leprosy caused unbearable itching. Pressing the flame to the wound provided temporary relief. But the fire did not completely stop the itch or heal the disease. Instead, they burned themselves. Once the temporary relief was gone, the wounds would swell and fester from the burns. These miserable individuals eventually had to endure more suffering and itching than before. Thus, these lepers would return to the fire to burn themselves again. The Buddha said that we are like this when we seek to satisfy our desires. When we seek the fire of physical pleasure, we may find temporary relief from the suffering and frustration of craving. But indulging in it does not heal us. Instead, we only burn ourselves. So how much more intense does the craving, the itch, become? The Buddha continued, "If a physician comes with a remedy for the lepers, they apply the medicine and are completely cured. What do they think of the fire now? No power on earth could make them want to burn themselves again. Old friends might call them to the fire, but they remember what happened, the madness of craving and the temporary relief of the flame. Nothing could make them go back. They feel great compassion for their old friends and for their own previous suffering." The Buddha often spoke of himself as a physician and his teachings, the Dharma, as medicine. For all the medicines in the world, various and numerous, There is none like the medicine of Dharma. Therefore, O monks, drink this medicine. Having drunk the Dharma medicine, you will be ageless and deathless. Having practiced and seen the truth, you will be quenched, freed from craving. Milne 335. Hearing this, you might ask, so do I have to choose between a partner and the path? This misunderstanding has worried many people. Sexual activity between two responsible adults does not obstruct their spiritual practice. In fact, such a supportive relationship can be a valuable asset in progressing along the Buddha's Eightfold Path to happiness. The precept against sexual misconduct can be upheld in subtler ways, beyond merely mechanical adherence to the precept. At the highest level, we regard all women as our sisters, and all men as our brothers, the elderly as our parents, and the young as our children. When this happens, desire disappears. We simply no longer see the opposite sex as objects of sexual desire. All previous attitudes vanish, even subtle desires dissolve into vast compassion and concern for others' safety. Furthermore, to perfect right action in the Eightfold Path, the Buddha advised us not to misuse any of our senses. Besides violating the precept of sexual misconduct, what else does this mean? It means that when we satisfy our desires by overstimulating any of our senses to the point of exhaustion, we are misusing our senses. What areas have we neglected, overlooked in our actions, activities, through which we push our body and mind beyond reasonable limits for pleasure or escape, forgetting reality? Ask yourself, do I allow myself to watch television for hours on end? Spend time on unnecessary paperwork until late at night? Eat more than what is needed to sustain life? Attend places where the music is so loud that it feels like my ears will burst? Seek pleasure to the extent that my body is exhausted and unable to work the next day? Use the internet for life and community benefits or merely for entertainment until my eyes blur and my mind freezes? These activities are unsuitable for the body in the spiritual path. But how will you feel if you give them up? In their place, self-respect will grow. The ego that arises from these activities can be broken, making room for a generous, spiritually inclined heart, no longer enslaved by the call of desire. Abstaining from intoxicants. The final precept in the 5 precepts instructs us to avoid using alcohol, drugs, or other intoxicants. And this precept is also contained in right action. When introducing this precept, the Buddha used conditional terms. He did not advise lay people to avoid all intoxicating substances, but only those that can make us insane, mindless, and careless. In other words, using narcotic painkillers prescribed by a doctor does not violate this precept. Occasionally drinking a small amount of light alcohol is also not a problem. In short, we must use our intelligence. Although we are allowed to drink a little alcohol, we should not do it. One drink often leads to another. Some people get drunk after just one drink and cannot control themselves. Therefore, the best time to practice self-restraint is before the first drink, not afterward. Some people become addicted over time, increasing their consumption gradually, so they do not realize that regular drinking has become a serious issue. Furthermore, keeping alcohol at home makes it easy for people to use it to escape or reduce stress. We can live completely healthy lives without alcohol. So it's best not to create opportunities for alcohol to ruin our lives. Over time, I have heard many tragic stories about the impact of alcohol on people's lives. For example, a meditator at Bhavana Society shared that many years ago she did not enjoy drinking and only drank a little when pressured by friends. At parties with alcohol, she never finished a beer. She would hold the bottle all night to blend in with the drinkers. After graduating, she moved to a different community. Her new friends drank regularly, and she slowly picked up the habit of occasionally drinking for fun. She recounted a night when, feeling distressed, she drank strong liquor glass after glass. When friends expressed concern and tried to stop her, she cursed them and told them to mind their own business. Suddenly, she felt a strange sensation throughout her body. She later realized it was a chemical change. From that moment, she became an alcoholic. For 2 years, she drank daily and got drunk at least a few times a week. Her personality changed negatively, causing her great suffering. Finally, she sought help from alcohol rehab centers and has been sober for many years now. There are many reasons why people turn to intoxicants. Young people may want to feel more grown-up or intellectual. Shy or anxious individuals may want to relax or be more accepted by others. Those with problems may want to find an escape. All these motivations arise from suffering, from wanting to escape the reality of what is happening in the present moment. However, contemplating this issue reveals that running away never solves any problem or reduces any suffering. Addiction to alcohol or drugs only increases our suffering. It causes us to lose self-respect, moral integrity, and self-control. We can easily lie, engage in sexual misconduct, steal, or do worse things. We may destroy our health, wealth, marriages, families, jobs, or businesses. We may lose the respect of others and our self-esteem. Ultimately, we will be left abandoned, drowning in suffering, wondering why such terrible things happen to us. In short, the best cure for addiction is to avoid using intoxicants in the first place. To better practice the Noble Eightfold Path, we can consider the broader meaning of this fifth precept at a higher level of restraint from using intoxicants. In what other situations do we use substances, and why? Using this aspect of right action as a general guide, question your motivations, and ask if you are trying to avoid mindfulness. How do you escape your problems? By reading newspapers, engaging in idle chatter. Mindfulness can help us identify what we use to avoid constantly facing reality. Higher precepts for lay people. We need to observe the 5 precepts daily. However, if we wish to progress faster on the path, we can voluntarily follow additional precepts for a certain period. These precepts include the basic 5 precepts and some stricter ones. Some meditators vow to keep these precepts on special occasions, such as during meditation retreats or when they stay at meditation centers or monasteries. There are 8 precepts: no killing, no stealing, no sexual misconduct, no lying, no intoxicants, no eating after noon, no dancing, singing, music or shows, and no use of jewelry, cosmetics or perfumes, no luxurious beds or seats. Occasionally observing these 8 precepts can enhance our meditation practice. With a clear conscience and no reason for remorse, our concentration can develop more strongly. In ancient times, people in Buddhist countries observed the 8 precepts for an entire day, 4 times a month. On these days, they would go to the temple or meditation center, spend the whole day practicing meditation, reciting scriptures, listening to teachings, and discussing the Dharma. Sometimes they would make pilgrimages from one temple or sacred site to another. Wherever they gathered, they would meditate and listen to Dharma talks given by knowledgeable laypeople or monks. The next day, they would return to their daily activities. Today, very few people practice this religious ritual, uposatha. Most of us, when not earning a living or taking care of children, engage in household chores, watch television, attend parties, go to restaurants, or visit bars. When tired of these activities, we go on vacations. Usually we work hard to earn money for these vacations, but they often involve another chase for pleasure. Upon returning home, we sometimes feel we need another vacation to recover from the previous one. Then we must continue working hard because without money, there will be no vacations. If we don't work hard, there will be no money. Perhaps you have also recognized this endless cycle of suffering. However, practicing uposatha to observe the 8 precepts offers an alternative choice. Observing uposatha for a day, a weekend, or longer can provide a real break from daily activities, leaving us refreshed, clear-headed, and free from fatigue and irritation. We don't need to go to a temple to observe these precepts. We can practice them at home. When there are children in the house, the opportunity for quiet and freedom may be rare. Therefore, using these precious times to cultivate inner peace is very important. The immediate benefits of this practice include feelings of peace, relaxation, improved health, and a clearer perspective on life and death. This occasional discipline can soothe and bring comfort to both body and mind. For example, those who typically eat 3 or 4 meals a day may find that fasting 1 day a week is beneficial. They can start by eating only 2 meals a day and fasting afterward. These 2 meals should include a full breakfast and a light lunch. They should skip dinner. Since there isn't much physical activity after a heavy evening meal, digestion is slow, and the food stays in the stomach until the next morning. When we don't eat in the evening, we will feel quite hungry the next morning. Then we can have a full breakfast. Most days, due to family and work commitments, we can't have a full breakfast and a light or no evening meal. Therefore, having a special day to practice a posatha gives us the opportunity to try this eating method. The time we save in the evening by not having to prepare, eat, and clean up after a heavy meal can be used for many beneficial activities, such as meditating or reading Buddhist scriptures. Although this practice is not easy at first, it is a wonderful habit to cultivate. Remember, nothing is easy in the beginning. Once you are accustomed to not eating much, you can try fasting for an entire day. Do not eat any food, but drink plenty of water and fruit juices. Dedicate that day to yourself, reading and meditating. Such a day can be a wonderful short break for both body and mind. Formally observing the 8 precepts helps us maintain mindfulness. When we start to do something that violates one of these precepts, our mind will say, "Wait a moment, remember," and we will recall, "Oh, I shouldn't." The precepts act like the whip a driver uses to gently remind the horse to stay on the path, or the horn of a car to remind the driver to stay on the road. Lay people can also choose to observe a set of precepts for life, known as the 8 precepts. These precepts include the 5 basic precepts, plus 3 additional ones related to right speech, refraining from harsh speech, refraining from abusive speech, and refraining from slanderous speech. In 1998, during the 10-year anniversary of the founding of the Bhavana Society, members were invited to participate in a ceremony to take the 8 precepts for life. This was suggested by one of the board members, as she herself wanted to take the 8 precepts. Participants were asked to attend a 2-day retreat before the ceremony to focus on the meaning of their commitment. The invitation was warmly received. 36 people attended the retreat, pledging to rely on the Buddha and observe the 8 precepts for life. Since then, we have held this ceremony annually. Preparing mentally to take the 8 precepts is not easy for some meditators. Some feel fearful, while others find it difficult to adhere to the precepts. It is indeed challenging to make such a commitment. The precept-taking ceremony is quite simple. Participants recite the commitment together as a group from the scriptures. Then each person receives a new Dharma name in the traditional Pali language. This simple ceremony leaves a positive impression on the lives of those who take the precepts, significantly influencing how they speak. After taking the precepts, when harsh words slip out, they immediately recognize their mistake. The precepts act as a conscious reminder, causing them to stop. Gradually, they will no longer use harsh speech. This simple transformation helps them see how the precepts operate to create happiness. Many people who have taken the 8 precepts have written to thank me. They said it was a turning point in their lives. But why should they thank me? I did not ask them to make this commitment. They volunteered. They made the commitment not for me, their loved ones, or anyone else, nor because the law required it, or for global benefit. They voluntarily observed these precepts for themselves, for their own lives, for their happiness in the present and the future. You should not be afraid to commit to practicing right action or observing the 8 precepts, or taking the 8 precepts for life. Instead, you should be glad that you have decided to act to live a better life. Those addicted to alcohol, drugs, gambling, or other unwholesome behaviors find it very difficult to decide to stop. They procrastinate and always have many excuses to delay. But once they decide to change and observe the precepts for a while, they find their minds clearer, they eat and sleep better, save money, and their relationships with family and society improve. As a result, they are full of gratitude and pride for choosing the right path. Similarly, we may also find it difficult to commit to abandoning unwholesome actions. But once we make the commitment and persevere in practicing, we will be happy, at ease, and joyful that we made a decision that brings about positive transformation in our lives. Mindfulness of right action. The Buddha taught, all virtuous speech, action, and thought arise from a mindful mind. In other words, right action naturally emerges from a mindful mind. Let's examine why this is so. Every intentional action of body, speech, and mind has a profound impact on us. When we harm someone or act wrongly, we often experience physical distress, leading to a state of mental agitation and suffering. Mindfulness helps us clearly see these harmful effects. We see that an unwholesome action leads to a feeling of remorse, which in turn leads to anxiety and distress, making the mind restless. When the mind is agitated, we lose the ability to be calm. The more negative the action, the more chaotic and anxious the mind becomes. This vicious cycle of negative karma influences us to commit further wrongdoings. Conversely, with a mindful mind, we see that when we act with love and kindness, our mind becomes light and peaceful. A tranquil mind helps us feel happier and enables deeper concentration. Knowing this, we become more enthusiastic in pursuing wholesome actions. Our body and mind become healthier and clearer. These positive outcomes help us advance on the spiritual path. I would also like to expand on this by saying that mindfulness in keeping precepts, whether it be 5, 8, or more, also enhances our dignity and beauty. When we speak or act mindfully regarding the precepts, we feel at ease and peaceful. And when the mind is unburdened, your face will radiate brightness and joy. Thinking about the good deeds we have done brings great joy. This peaceful mind shines through your eyes and face, making others feel close to you. When we are mindful of right action, an unburdened mind helps us focus on each passing moment, not in a despondent or passive way. We put all our abilities and intelligence into being aware of what is happening in our mind and interacting skillfully with the world around us. In this way, we develop awareness of our actions. Such a mindful mind becomes even more essential when our endurance is tested. It's easy to maintain precepts and act courteously when no one challenges or disturbs us. But when someone says something hurtful or provokes us, our mind can become unsettled instantly. However, if mindfulness is present, it will arise at the right moment to say, pause for a moment to let the mind calm down. It's better not to say or do anything regrettable. If we maintain mindfulness in all activities, we will remember to stay calm when provoked. For example, when grieving the loss of a loved one or a valuable possession, even a small provocation can make us angry. At that time, we must be extra careful in our interactions, like a person without shoes walking cautiously to avoid broken glass. The same applies when we are sick, tired, hungry, lonely, suffering, or irritated. In such times, maintaining mindfulness in every moment helps us remember our current vulnerability to avoid actions that might cause regret. Another case when you must be highly mindful is when you feel you are in an environment where past habits might tempt you to violate ethical precepts. Someone who has easily stolen before must immediately become mindful when they see someone's wallet within reach. Someone who was once an alcoholic must become mindful when offered a free beer. A married man who has struggled with lust and is given a woman's business card must remind himself, if I take this number, it will tempt me to sin. My mind will not be at peace. I love my wife and children and do not want to harm my family. It's best to not take it or discard it immediately. Before achieving enlightenment and fully refining the mind, we may commit many other unwholesome acts. Before doing something we know is wrong, we should pause and mindfully reflect on how this action might harm us. For example, if we feel tempted to steal money from our employer, we need to reflect on the consequences of theft, living in fear of getting caught. If caught, we will surely lose our job, our honor, and even our freedom. Even if we are not punished by law, our conscience will punish us immediately. If just thinking about such an act makes the mind restless, imagine how disturbed it will be if we carry it out. When an unwholesome thought is just a fleeting idea, we can live with it. But once it becomes action, we will never live in peace. We must also weigh the short-lived happiness an unwholesome act might bring against the long-term suffering it causes. For example, you may feel the urge to hit someone. This thought may arise because you believe you will feel satisfied afterward. I got my revenge. This person won't dare do that again. But you cannot predict the outcome accurately. The other person may become angry and hit back harder. They may harbor resentment and plan to attack you secretly. An unwise reaction can lead to prolonged and bitter conflicts. I know a person in Sri Lanka who had a long-standing feud with a neighbor. To take revenge, he built a hut next to the neighbor's well. The neighbor complained, asking him to remove it, but he refused. Eventually, the neighbors fell ill. The dispute between the two families escalated until one committed murder. The law intervened, and the man ended up in jail. Both families suffered, but their hatred will continue for many generations. Such neighborly disputes occur everywhere. There are billions of such arguments. If such disputes arise for us, we must stop immediately and try to calm the situation. Uncontrolled disputes harm everyone involved. Right action is not something the Buddha invented. The truth is that unwholesome actions always bring suffering and cause hatred. As the Buddha expressed this idea, hatred is never appeased by hatred. By love alone is hatred appeased. This is a timeless law. The Buddha did not say he created this law. It applies not just to Buddhists but to everyone. With an enlightened mind, the Buddha could clearly see that harmful consequences arise from wrong actions. He taught, if one acts or speaks with a defiled mind, suffering follows him like the wheel that follows the foot of the ox. If one acts or speaks with a pure mind, happiness follows him like a shadow that never leaves. Right action not only purifies our mind, but also positively affects everyone around us. I once heard a story about a monk who demonstrated how mindfulness of right action can help others. The temple where the monk lived had a jackfruit tree bearing fruit. Jackfruit is very beneficial for the monastery's sustenance. Each large jackfruit, with its protein-rich seeds and thick flesh, can be used to prepare many dishes. Poor families who cannot afford food can survive on jackfruit. Although jackfruit is not a valuable fruit, stealing it in impoverished areas can sometimes cost the thief their life. One night, the monk noticed a thief picking jackfruit in the temple. The thief was high up in the tree, lowering each fruit with a rope to avoid making noise and attracting attention. The thief had a way of tying the rope around the fruit so that when it touched the ground, the rope would loosen. The thief would then pull the rope up to tie the next fruit. The monk stood silently under the jackfruit tree. As each fruit touched the ground, he helped remove the rope. Eventually, the thief climbed down. He nearly fainted upon seeing the smiling monk waiting for him. The monk gently, not like a victim of theft, but like a concerned parent, asked, "Have you picked enough jackfruit? Do you need more?" There was no need for noisy scolding, which could have made the thief's situation worse with the other temple residents. The monk's gentle and generous attitude made the thief so ashamed that he quickly left and never returned to steal from the temple again. What should you do if you violate one of the ethical precepts of right action? The answer is simple. Practice mindfulness. First, be aware of what you have done. Then, if possible, make amends. Finally, resolve to uphold the precepts of right action in the future. If you have broken a precept, recommit to it. Then let go of the wrongdoing. Regret, worry, or anxiety about consequences beyond our control does not help us. Accept past mistakes with the same generosity and compassion the monk showed the jackfruit thief. Doing so will help you increase your diligence in practicing right action. Summary of right action. Anyone interested in spiritual development must observe the 5 precepts: not killing, not stealing, not lying, not engaging in sexual misconduct, and not using drugs or alcohol. Eating meat, by definition, is not considered killing. Killing or taking a life involves intent, awareness, planning, and acting according to the plan. When we refrain from killing, we practice compassion and do not threaten the lives of any beings. Stealing means taking what is not given, including others' thoughts and ideas. When we do not steal, we develop respect for others' needs and practice sympathetic joy. The precept against sexual misconduct includes not raping, not forcing someone to have intercourse against their will, not sexually abusing children, animals, someone else's spouse, or anyone unable to protect themselves. It also includes deceit in relationships. When we refrain from sexual misconduct, lowly desires can be eradicated. Sexual relations with a spouse or partner are not considered sexual misconduct. We must avoid all intentional abuse of the senses. Doing so helps us let go of craving and develop generosity towards others. Alcohol or drug addiction can occur quickly or gradually become a habit. Addiction is very harmful, and it is best not to try addictive substances. When we avoid using addictive substances, we can maintain clarity of mind and practice to eliminate delusions. We can develop mindfulness and train to act rightly according to reality. Observing additional precepts, whether they are the 8 precepts for a day or lifelong commitments to 8 precepts, can be an effective tool to aid in meditation and further progress on the spiritual path. Mindfulness can help us overcome temptations, avoid arguments, and act with compassion towards both others and our own unwholesome behaviors. Thank you for listening. If you found this video helpful, please share it with those who might benefit from it. Don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button, follow, and turn on the notification bell. This is how you can show your support for me. Once again, thank you very much, and see you in the next videos.